Hello.
Here we are in the middle of Paris on the Île de la Cité, and this is where Paris started. So I'm here with Florent today. And Florent will explain everything that happened in Paris during the Roman time.
Exactly.
Perfect.
So we're going to start this tour on the island of La Cité, and then we will cross the river and we will go in Quartier Latin, which literally means the Latin Quarter, which is the oldest district of Paris.
Great, let's go. So we are on Île de la Cité, and behind us there is a sign, Rue de Lutèce.
Yes, what is Lutèce? Lutèce comes from the Latin word Lutetia, which was the name of Paris at the time of the Roman.
Ah, so when is that?
So, Labienus, a lieutenant of Julius Caesar, defeated the tribe of the Parisiis, which was a Gallic tribe, a Celtic tribe, 52 before Jesus Christ.
Okay.
And they founded Paris right here on the island, on the Latin Quarter. And everywhere we walk, everywhere we're going to walk together today, you have to imagine that the Roman city was just below our feet.
Okay.
Exactly where we are, just there, used to be a basilica, which was kind of a church. The archaeologists could dig many times on the island of La Cité, and they found a lot of Roman buildings. The Roman, they decided to stay here, and we will see why they went on the Latin Quarter, because it's a hill. In French, we call it now Montagne Saint Geneviève, the mountain of Saint Geneviève. However, during the Roman time, there was a lot of flood, and being on the hill was actually a protection against these floods.
Oh,
and I propose we just go there, where, follow me, Mary.
Yes, let's go.
And I was there in 2013, and during 2 days, you could visit the archaeological surveys that happened right here.
Okay.
This is nowadays.
So we are in front of the Préfecture de Police, and so in 2013, some archaeological search were made here, and we are just for the people who came in Paris. We are just at the side of the Sainte-Chapelle, which is from the Middle Ages time.
Exactly.
And,
let's go have a quick look at Sainte-Chapelle.
And so, just wait here. And so, what happened during this archaeological search?
So, they were very happy to be able to dig on the island of La Cité, which is one of the oldest districts of the city. And usually you can't, but they actually could dig. They found a church from the Middle Age, and they found Roman tombs and Roman buildings, and more like 2,000 years old. And it was like for 15 years they couldn't dig on the island of La Cité, and it doesn't seem to be very big, but it was confirming that the Roman city was beneath. However, I asked to the archaeologist, Mr. Xavier Pesotto, if they found anything from the Celtic tribe, the Parisiis, and he told me no.
Okay, so that means probably the Celtic tribes that was here before the Romans, they probably were not living here on the island.
Exactly. There might be a few people living here, but the main oppidum, the Celtic village, was a few kilometers away. But you noticed the name of the tribe was the Parisiis.
Parisiis, like Paris.
And Paris, that's the origin of the name of the city, Paris. But at the time of the Romans, they changed the name. It was Lutetia, which would be a word to describe a muddy place. It's
muddy because of the river.
Of the river and of the swamps that used to be around. Only in the 4th century AD, they took the former name, and Lutetia disappeared to become Paris. They found a stone, the archaeologists found a stone, written Civitas Parisorum, the city of the Parisiis.
Yeah, okay.
And many cities in France took their old name, the Gallic name. In England, for example, they kept their Roman name, like the city of London used to be named Londinium by the Roman, but in France, a few centuries after the beginning of the conquest, the old names came back, and that's why we have the city name Paris.
So here we are in between Île de la Cité and the Latin Quarter, and we are crossing this bridge.
Exactly. This bridge is named Petit Pont, which means small bridge. So this bridge is of course not Roman, but the first ever bridge in Paris built by the Roman was exactly here. We have found, I mean the archaeologists have found at the bottom of the river, just below us, big pieces of wood. And that's not a surprise that the first Roman bridge was built here. It's because this street just over there is actually the oldest street of Paris. It was named the Cardo Maximus. So we're gonna go there and tell you more about this important street. So follow us. So the Cardo Maximus, that is to say this street is 2000 years old and it's a north-south axis. That is to say the Roman cities were built a little bit like American cities, you know, a north-south axis and east-west axis. So the Cardo Maximus was the most important street at the time of the Roman. And from here, where it's Rue du Petit Pont, street of the small bridge, which is just in that direction, it becomes Rue Saint-Jacques, because if you go 1,826 kilometers away from here, you will reach the city of Compostelle. And Santiago de Compostelle is the most famous, the most important place of pilgrimage during the Middle Age. And we have a sign on the floor that reminds us that we are on the way for the pilgrimage. You can see that's the symbol of the, it's a shell, we call it a Saint-Jacques shell, and that's the sign of the pilgrims. So that is to say, this Roman street was also a very important street at the time of the Middle Age. And I'm going to take you just there. We're gonna see a small street, which also happens to be Roman, and I'm going to show you what workers found at the beginning of the century. So we are going now just to have a look at Rue Galande, which was a small Roman street going to the east. So you have to imagine that there was Roman legionnaires, priests, even an emperor. The emperor Julian, the Roman emperor, became emperor in the city of Lutetia. His palace used to be on the island of La Cité. So Lutetia at the time of the Roman was not a very important city. We could say it's like a third category city with 10,000 inhabitants. But like every Roman cities, it had Roman baths, theaters, amphitheaters, arenas. We will see the arenas later. It had everything a Roman city needed to have in the time named Pax Romana, the Roman peace. Now we are just in front of Saint-Julien-Le-Pauvre, and actually it's one of the oldest church, which was actually a little bit bigger. What is interesting, if you look on the left, you have a building from the 1100s and the facade is from 1650. When the church was about to collapse, they just took the stones and make a smaller church. But what is interesting, at the beginning of the 20th century, the workers were digging here in the street that I just showed you, and they discovered this Roman pavement, and that you can see in that direction, just next to the well. So that really reminds us that in Paris, when you are in the Latin Quarter, if you dig here, you find Roman artifacts. You find tombs, you find ceramic, you find coins, you find bones, oysters, everything reminding us that the Roman city was just beneath. So we're going to walk in the direction of a beautiful garden just next to the Cathedral of Notre Dame, and I'm going to tell you what they found under the main square in front of the cathedral. In the 1970s, they were digging an underground parking just in front of the Cathedral Notre Dame, and they made a major discovery. They found the ruins of the Roman city. They found the ruins of houses, they found the ruins of the city wall. They found even the wharf, the first ever wharf made of stone in Paris. And we can visit it. It's named La Crypte Archéologique, the archaeological crypt, and the entrance is just in front of Notre Dame. It's interesting to know that the city of Lutetia, as I said, like 10,000 people, it was the Pax Romana, the Roman peace, and it was a surprise, but there was no city wall at the beginning of the city. But in the 3rd century started the barbarian invasion, and the Roman who were living on the left bank, in the Latin Quarter, sought refuge on the island of La Cité, and they took the stones of the destroyed buildings such as the Forum or the Arenas, and they took the big stone to build a city wall surrounding the island. So you had the natural protection of the water, then you had a very strong city wall, very impressive. And what is interesting when you visit the crypt archeological is you can see the city wall, and on some of the blocks you still find some letters because they used to be taken from monuments. Imagine that this city wall was very strong, that is to say in the 9th century AD, when the Vikings were attacking Paris, the Parisians were living on the island of La Cité, and the city wall made by the Roman was still there to protect the Parisians. That is to say, we will see that with the Roman bath, that when the Roman built something, it was really, really strong.
So now we are in the 5th district, in Rue Monge.
And we walk a little bit to find a secret passage taking us to one of the most interesting parts of the Roman Paris. There is a hint when you look over there, you can see the helmet of a gladiator. Welcome to the Arenas of Lutetia. Welcome to the Arenas of Lutetia. We're going to see together what was discovered here in 1869.
So when you say arenas, so that means it's a place, like you see, it's a round place around us. It's pretty big. And we saw a gladiator helmet.
Yes, we are just in the middle of the Arenas of Lutetia. And you have to imagine that the arenas were like 3 to 4 times bigger than what was left. And actually here you had a theater. So for example, just in this part you had high walls. The high walls were very helpful to make everybody listen and hear the voice of the comedian. But as it was arenas, it was sometimes theaters, but it was also sometimes fightings of the gladiators, and also a place where martyrs would be facing wild animals. If you look in that direction, you can see the place, the cages where the wild animals were kept. Then they would open, and you can see the arenas where people sit is actually higher, so people would be protected from the wild animals. But it's a miracle we still have these arenas. There have been archaeological surveys. They found a lot of blocks of stone, some of them with the name of the families that had their own seat. And we have a really here a place, it's a miracle that we still have it, because when it was discovered in the second part of the 1800s, people wanted to destroy it. You have to imagine that the whole arena was even at some point used as a parking lot for buses, and Victor Hugo, the very famous French author, really fought in order to preserve these arenas. So 2/3 of the arenas were destroyed, but they kept like 1/3 of them. And we are truly in the oldest construction that we still have in Paris from the Roman times. So we had a population of like 10,000 people in Lutetia at the time of the Roman, when we think like the second part of the 2nd century AD. And you have to imagine that in this theater you could have more than 15,000 people. That reminds us that people living around Lutetia would gather here and experiment the fights of the gladiators or the theater plays. And so it's really nice. You can even see some vineyard in that direction. It's a very, very quiet place. And also remember the wall that the people from Lutèce had to build against the barbarian, and they used many stones of the arenas. So it looks not as huge as it used to be, but I'm going to show you an image that is an idea of how the arenas used to look like at the Roman times. Okay, so on this document you have an idea how the areas used to look like at the Roman times. We are currently right here, so you have to imagine you have the high walls behind us, and you can even see like a temporary roof when it was too sunny or raining. So it was 15,000 people who could stand there, and they could hear the voices of the comedians thanks to the walls. The sound would go high, and all the 15,000 people could hear without a microphone. Hi, so you have to imagine me like 1900 years ago as a man in the public, like shouting during the fights of the gladiators, or just watching a theater play, or watch the wild animals fight against people. It's really amazing to imagine that 1900 years ago, people were sitting exactly where I am, and enjoy the beautiful arenas of Lutetia. That really reminds us that even if Lutetia was not a huge city at the time of the Roman, it had everything Roman cities needed to have. So that reminds us a famous Roman sentence to make the people happy, and it was the famous sentence "du pain et des jeux." What need the people? Bread and games. These games were to entertain the Roman population, and as I said earlier, people were coming from far away to attend the theater plays, the gladiators fighting that would occur here like 1800, 1900 years ago. So we're just on our way to the Panthéon, and we stopped here to see that fortification was an important way to protect Paris, like the Roman time, but also during the Middle Age. And just in front of us, we have a very big part of the city wall that was built here in the early 1200s. So it was the wall of Philippe Auguste, and Paris always had city walls after the Roman time, and that was the main one built, as I said, yes, in the beginning of the 1200s. So we remember that the Roman built the city on this side of the river because you're on the hill. That is called Montagne Saint Geneviève. So you can see just here, look Marie, on the left, you can see that street. It's a former Roman street, for example. We're gonna see all the streets that used to be Roman, and we are on the top of the mountain, and we're surrounded by very interesting buildings, such as this tower from the Middle Age. We believe that the first Christian king named Clovis was buried just below.
So first Christian king, because at the time the Romans, of course, there is another religion.
Exactly.
They believe in this whole pantheon of God, different gods. They have so many different figures.
Yes, of Mars, Jupiter, Juno, Mercury.
And they have temples in Paris for
and
them.
they had temples in Paris, like there was one just below the Cathedral Notre Dame. They had temples on the top of the hill of Montmartre. And that reminds us of the legend of Saint Denis, who is the patron saint of Paris. He was like a bishop sent to Paris to convert Parisians around 250 AD, and it was forbidden to be a Christian at the time. And before the Emperor Constantine in the 4th century became a Christian himself. So he was caught by the Roman, and he was beheaded. And the legend says that after he was beheaded, he simply bent and took his head and walked with it like 5-6 kilometers, like 4 miles, preaching the people to convert. And after a walk, he would stop in a city which is now named Saint Denis, where you have the Basilica of Saint Denis, where all the French kings were buried. That's the place where, as to the legend, Saint Denis would have finally stopped to walk, and that's the place where he's supposed to be buried. So he's still now, Saint Denis, the patron saint of Paris.
So that's during the Roman time?
That was during the Roman time, when it was forbidden to be a Christian. So
amazing.
After him, it's a legend, but there is a message behind this legend. The fact that he could walk with his head cut is a way to show that the Roman could kill him, cut his head off, but they could not kill his message. They couldn't destroy his legacy, the fact that after he came to Paris, Parisians started to convert to Christianity. So now we arrive at the Église Saint-Étienne-du-Mont. Saint-Étienne-du-Mont is a church where Saint Geneviève is buried. So we talk of the patron saint of Paris, Saint Denis. There is also Saint Geneviève, and that's interesting because she was a young teenager in 451 when the army of Attila, you know, the plague of God, Attila, the conqueror, was about to threaten Paris. Parisians were leaving the city, and a young teenager stood in the middle of a bridge and told the Parisians to stay and fight. And finally, the Parisians stayed behind the walls, and Attila didn't destroy Paris. He destroyed the city named Orleans, that gave, for example, New Orleans. And she's buried there. I mean, you have her coffin. During the revolution it was emptied, but you still find a place with some relics of Saint Geneviève.
So we can see that she's wearing this, it looks like a traditional kind of way of, I don't know, to dress during gold time.
So it's at the 5th century AD, and Geneviève was coming from a Roman nobility and partly Frank nobility. So she was really making like a bridge between the Roman time and the time when France became ruled by the Franks. That's what we can see. She also saved Paris 10 years later when the city was besieged by the Franks. She organized the supply of food to the Parisians. She saved Paris twice. She became a saint, of course, the saint protecting Paris.
So now we just went from the church Saint Geneviève to the Panthéon. We're going to see this amazing building called the Panthéon, inspired by the one in Rome.
Exactly. At the origin, it was a church. That's why you can see on the top of the dome a Christian cross. And it was built just prior to the French Revolution. And during the Revolution, they decided to turn this church into the Panthéon, like a copy of the Panthéon that you had at the Roman time. This is now a place where you find the tombs of the famous people of France, like Pierre and Marie Curie, like Victor Hugo, like the philosopher Voltaire, the philosopher Rousseau, and like little bit more than 100 people. And that was built by an architect named Soufflot. And Soufflot spent a lot of time in Rome and wanted to build something looking like something similar. That look also a little bit like St. Paul, the Cathedral St. Paul in London, for example. At the same time, we're talking of the first half of the 1700s.
But so what is the link between Rome and Paris here? I mean, why this place is so important for the Romans?
For the Roman, it's because we are really just, we're on the top of the mountain, and the geographical center of the Roman city was just like a few steps away from here. So that was, if just below us, it has been dug, and they found a treasure, a big Roman treasure, just below the high school that we saw with a Clovis tower. They found thousands of gold coins. I mean, everywhere here, when you dig, you find Roman stuff, because that was really the center of the Roman city, the center of the Roman city until the barbarian invasion. When the barbarian attacked Paris, as we saw earlier, the people from Lutetia left this part, abandoned this part of the city, took the stones of the big monuments of the Forum that was just there, the Forum, very important place, the center of the city, and they built a city wall on the island of La Cité. And at the time, at the end of the Roman Empire, that was the center of the Roman city, and it is until nowadays the center, geographical center of Paris.
Amazing.
Et on sait que vraiment ça, c'est le centre géographique de la ville romaine. Donc, right here, we are precisely where the center of the Roman city was. The geographical center of Lutetia was just below. And remember at the beginning I was talking of the main north-south axis of the street, the Cardo Maximus. So that was the Roman name of the street that you can see, but now we are on the top. So it was the north-south axis, and in every Roman city you had an east-west axis, that was named Decumanus. So the Decumanus, we don't really know where it was, but we believe it used to be below the Sorbonne University. That is to say, we were at the crossing of the two main streets, and you had the Forum. And the Forum was the center of the city. You had a temple, you had the government, you had many shops, and a place where people could meet and gather. And the Forum, it's something very sad. They discovered remnants of the Forum in the 1970s, building an underground parking. And remember the crypt that we saw at the beginning? They said, we cannot keep everything. Everything was made for the cars in the 70s, and they destroyed all the Forum. We just have a piece of wall, like 3 meters, and the Forum was just below, but we have almost nothing left. So that's terrible. But yes, the Roman city is just below us. Remember, we are walking over Roman ruins.
Perfect.
So, you just saw me standing on something that's very interesting that was discovered in the year 2000. I was staying on the top of a well, but that well is 2000 years old. Of course, the Roman had built an aqueduct to bring water to the city, to the Roman bath. But many buildings were not connected to this aqueduct, and they needed to have a private well. And we believe that this was a private well of what we call an insula. An insula is a Latin word that describes a building where with different apartments where people were living, an insula. And it goes very deep. We cannot see the bottom of it, but that's fascinating that when you're walking in the Latin Quarter, here and there, as you could notice, we find some Roman remnants. Let's go and see the links between Rome and Paris until nowadays. We are getting now in this beautiful little park, little garden in front of the university. And you can see that Paris and Rome still have strong links when you look at this statue. So you can see a she-wolf and 2 babies. They are Romulus and Remus.
Oh, the 2 twins that fundated Rome, right?
Exactly.
The fundators of Rome.
And you find this statue here because after the Second World War, all around Europe, all across Europe, cities decided to be connected, to have links between cities, to make people from different countries getting to know each other, and they had partnership between cities. But in Paris, we have only one sister city. This is Rome. And Rome is the only sister city of Paris. So Paris and Rome are sister cities since the 1970s. Solo Parigi è degna di Roma, solo Roma è degna di Parigi. That is Italian to say only Rome worth Paris, only Paris worth Rome. Behind me you can see the Hôtel de Cluny. It's a building from the Middle Age, from the late Middle Age. It's nowadays the Museum of Middle Age in Paris. And what is interesting, it was kind of the embassy of the biggest monastery in France, which was named Cluny in Burgundy. And the monks who used to live here, they built they're building just over the Roman bath.
Oh,
And
okay.
this has helped the Roman bath to cross the time without being too much damaged. So we are going to see now the place where Roman used to go sometimes on a daily basis. As I said, it was a part of what a Roman city needed to have, public bath. So there used to be two of them. One of them is actually you can't see anything left. It will just be behind us like the Collège de France. But the other one, you are going to see a building from the 2nd century AD, very important for the Roman. So this part of the Roman bath is really well preserved and rather interesting. You can see just below the place where Roman, after getting in the Roman bath, would go in private bath tube, and that's the thing that you can see just below. And
Yes,
you can see
through the grid. I think from here you're gonna see them a little bit better. Yeah, you can see those shapes.
exactly. So just here and there, private bath tube, and there's something interesting here. If you look, you can see the actual floor of the street.
Yes.
And when you get closer,
Yeah, you can see
the floor of the Roman time. So as I said, it's like 2 meters beneath. That was the floor at the Roman time, but we had different layers of the city that used to be built above each other, and that reminds us that we would be walking over the head of the Roman right now.
So now we are just by Boulevard Saint-Michel,
Exactly.
and in this little garden that is behind the Musée du Moyen Âge, the Musée de Cluny, and the bath, the Roman bath.
The Roman bath. So remember, we had an aqueduct that was pretty long, like 10 miles long, to bring water directly to Paris. And we can see a typical example of Roman architecture and materials. It's a mix of tiles and stone that was made to last. You'll find this kind of architecture in all the Roman Empire. So you have to imagine that the Roman baths are partly destroyed, but it was a very luxurious place. So how was it to go to the Roman bath? It was a way to get clean. So when they would enter, it is said that the price would be like 50 cents, so almost nothing, so it was almost free. The Roman would stand in the first room with a lukewarm atmosphere to get prepared for the next room, which was 50 degrees hot, that is to Celsius hot.
Celsius, yeah.
Yeah, Celsius. And it was like a sauna. And once you had stayed here lit enough, you would go in the next room, and with a kind of instrument, you would get rid of the dead skins on the what you had, and to clean you. And then you would receive oil and soap. Soap was a Gallic invention that was invented by the Gallic people, and then people would be clean, and then they would go in this part of the Roman theater, which was named La Palestra, or the gymnasium. So they could practice some sport, they could meet other people, and it was not mixed. That is to say, in the morning, the Roman bath was for the women. In the afternoon, it was for the men, and they were not supposed to mix. So you can see that the Roman bath of Paris used to be very luxurious, marbles,
Wow.
beautiful statues. Of course, the marble disappeared, but one of the rooms still have its rooftop, and that's quite amazing because it's one very, very rare Roman buildings that kept its rooftop. So you can see a luxurious place. It's the way the Roman bath used to be organized.
Yeah, we can see a swimming pool.
Yes, they used to make hot water. You see a fire here. you see what we call tegula. It's kind of ceramic. It would actually get hot thanks to the fire, and then that was a warm swimming pool, like the swimming pool we saw just before.
Nice. And this room that we're looking at here on the document, it's still existing in the museum, right?
Exactly. When you visit the Museum of the Middle Age, you can see also in that room Roman statues and what we call the pillar of the note. That is to say, kind of a column with different Roman gods that was found just below the choir of the Cathedral Notre Dame. So the note was like a guild that of the navigation on the river, and they offered this monument to the gods, the Roman gods. So you have a link between the island of La Cité and the Latin culture.
So Florent, you have a treasure yourself to show?
Yes, I just brought with us a Roman coin.
Wow, a true Roman coin.
Genuine Roman coins made of silver. You can see that the emperor named Gordian, and you can see on the back like a goddess. Imagine it was a coin that Romans used to have in the hand that they needed to pay. So it's an emperor named Gordian III. He became emperor at the age of 13. He married at the age of 16, and he was killed at the age of 19.
Oh.
So yes, like almost all the Roman emperors died being killed and not of natural death. But you can see it's a remnant of the past that has been discovered in France, reminding us that the Roman culture is still everywhere in the country.
So here we are at the end of our tour, and that was really great to have you, Florent.
Thank you, Marie. It was great to have you too.
So we learned a lot of things about the Roman time, so Paris during the time when it was called Lutetia, and I hope that you learned also a lot today. So thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you for sharing with your friends, with your family. Every week we are sharing what we love the most.
Yes.
So our knowledge about Paris. So please help us. You can also, of course, tip your guide. He's going to be really pleased of that, with Roman coins or true euros or dollars as you want.
Yes.
So thank you so much, guys. See you next week. Bye.
Bye.